Welcome to Agency Nation Radio, powered by the Big I, where we ask insurance professionals to turn on the mic and share successes, challenges, and the stories that made them the professionals that they are today. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Kevin Wheeler, and I'm with Angela Adams Consulting and a partner of the agency's Council for Technology. This series has come out of the ACT's Artificial Intelligence Workgroup's commitment to equipping independent agents with practical, peer-driven knowledge and about artificial intelligence. Today's episode explores what agents need to know when working with AI vendors, which in itself, it can be a daunting task. And we're fortunate today to have the owner of O'Connor Insurance Associates, Michelle O'Connor, as well as Kimberly Fox, the Commercial Lines Account Executive at O'Connor. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about you and the agency quickly.
Absolutely. So my husband and I own O'Connor Insurance Associates in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. We started it as a scratch agency in 2000 and have always prided ourselves in being technology forward. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Awesome. And Kimberly, a little bit about you.
Well, I've been with O'Connor since December of 2019, so a little over 5.5 years now. And I handle our commercial lines service and sales when it's needed and a lot of our technology stuff.
Well, great. Well, let's get into the topic today. So artificial intelligence, that's the big buzzword in our industry right now. I can't remember in the 40 years any one topic dominate the conversations at the water coolers or at conferences, etc., than AI. And everybody wants to know, and everybody's concerned, or everybody is a little anxious, but they just don't know where to start. And you guys took on a really aggressive initiative, and you realized that you had a need, and you thought AI could solve it. Do you care to elaborate, Michelle, on that?
Sure, absolutely. So we're really excited about what AI can do for our agency. Being a small agent, efficiencies are incredibly important. And sometimes we get left out of the technology conversations because we are small and the vendors tend to go towards larger agencies. And so this is a really exciting world for us right now to make our agency more efficient so our people can spend more time doing what they do best, talking about insurance with our clients. And that's our goal with the use of AI.
So was that something you initiated, or was that something that came to you from Kimberly or others?
Well, Kimberly and I keep each other abreast of all things technology. So it's been known for us to send texts back and forth Saturday morning because we read an interesting article about something that we want to try or investigate. So I think when AI came on the scene, I downloaded ChatGPT, immediately, and we started testing it and just using it for random use cases to see what it can do. Being involved with independent agents of North Carolina, I have been privy to 101 Weston Labs and helped to kick that initiative off. So we started to get access to vendors and see what they were doing very early on. And that's what made us, again, just continuously evaluate what can we do internally to make our agency more efficient, and how can AI be a part of that conversation.
Very good. So was there something specific that you were really looking for?
The efficiencies is what we were really looking for, but when the one that we jumped off with has been an AI-assisted phone vendor, and so that came to us because of the need to have, or the desire to have, human interaction or human-like interaction on the front end of the phone. So we've always prided ourselves in that. We used an automated attendant like in the early 2000s for like a moment, and then decided we didn't like that experience for clients. And so this particular vendor was solving a need for us to have the phone answered live and have it transferred efficiently and effectively. And we built on that.
So what were some of the must-haves that you said, okay, we identify that we've got a need, we need a solution, but what were we got to really have this coming out of this project?
For this particular project, the must-haves are the most basic. And then I'm going to let Kimberly elaborate on some other things that we've tested too. But for this particular project, the must-haves are that the phone is answered efficiently, effectively, with a warm voice, and has a consistent client experience. So it's really just the phone answering 101s, how I would describe it. That was the must have. And then also a vendor that we can trust and that will communicate with us and collaborate with us as we build on it. But Kimberly and I have evaluated tons of tech, and she's got some other things that we've looked at as in terms of just must-haves with vendors too.
We've demoed, I don't even know how many management systems at this point, and CRMs and the voice assistants, because there's a couple of them out there now. I think the biggest thing is the customer service on the back end, not just signing up with a vendor that makes all these promises and then you run into issues or have questions about configuring things to make it actually work for you, and then they kind of disappear and you're left to your own devices. So having solid customer service after they've made the sale is definitely like one of the necessary qualities that we look for in vendors. And kind of talking about that on the front end before we ever, sign on the dotted line, we talk to them about what service looks like after the initial onboarding phase.
So, but we all know we're in the business and we've been exposed to, I don't want to say, sales pitches and not coming to fruition. But, Kimberly, help me, how did you demo these different products? How did you even try to compare them to see what really was going to be reality and which was vaporware?
Well, I am a firm believer in doing research. Mike Colby says that that's what I'm built for. So doing a lot of online research and looking and talking to other agents, people in the industry that have used products, just general questions to people. Hey, do you know of any solutions like this? And then I've also used the generative AI tools to tell me what kind of products are out there and compare them and give me a summary of all of the features on their paid plans, on their free plans, and side-by-side comparison chart of what that looks like so I can see the pros and cons right beside each other. So I will do all the research I can, and then in the demo, we ask a ton of questions. We try to have questions ready beforehand, but as we're going through the demo, we ask every question that we can think of while we have their attention and they're, already in the system. So the demo process is just a matter of scheduling it and paying attention as they're going through it and asking questions about the things that we're actually going to be using. So if we're demoing a management system, we're looking at things like activities and what do the policy screens look like? How do you issue certificates? Just asking about the relevant features that we're going to be using on a regular basis to make sure that it's actually going to work the way that we need it to.
So just like even trying to buy a car, you got to evaluate, you got to test drive it, you got to do your homework, right?
Yes. And the ones that we like, that we are like, yeah, this might be a good option for us. It's common for us to ask if we can actually get access to the system, like a free trial kind of thing to go in there and play around. I am the type of person that wants to go in and see if I can break things and then also see if I can fix them. Because if I can go in there and mess with things and figure out how it all works together, I'm much more comfortable with the technology. Now, not all vendors are going to let us do that, but the ones that do are typically also the ones that we end up moving forward with because they trust in their product enough to let you actually play with it before you sign a contract and all your money.
So, Michelle, what were some red flags or some actual deal breakers that even you said, okay, we're done with this vendor, we need to look at some other options?
Sure. I think that there's lots of red flags. Kimberly alluded to a couple of them. But for us one of the things that's a deal breaker is just the product not meeting our particular agency's needs and tech stack. And that's super critical to us because you can add technology and actually make yourself less efficient because now you've got an additional system that doesn't communicate with your primary tech stack. And so we found that can be a major deal breaker. We've even had vendors tell us that it will do something or connect to something when we find out down the road that it does connect, but we have to pay a very large additional fee. And so the ROI just is not helpful in that we can't make that work for our office. So that has been a major deal breaker. Also, just the plain product not doing what it's advertised or promised to do. And that, by questioning it, by touching it if we can, by actually getting into it, we can determine some of that. When I started down the voice assistant path, one of the vendors that I was utilizing, the setup process was super difficult and time consuming, and I kept hitting roadblocks. And when I hit a roadblock and reached out, then it would be 24 hours before somebody got back to me. And as busy agency folks know, you usually dedicate a time block to get a project worked on. So I'd be outside of that time block. I've already moved on to something else, and now they're finally getting back to me. So that customer service component is another large component of a deal breaker and a red flag for us.
Very good. And you mentioned, I think, earlier in our conversation that the vendor's transparency, I think is the word that you used, was very, very critical and important in your decision as well. Is that correct?
Very much so. And them understanding our business as well, that transparency, part of that transparency is them understanding our business, because I think vendors feel like they have a grasp on what independent agents do every day. But the more that you question them, you really know whether they do or not. They understand what that workflow is going to look like in most agencies. Even the answering of the phone and the transferring, the transparency in that and being able to configure that to make it work for your shop. However you do that, whatever that looks like, that's super important.
So the two of you work very, very closely on this initiative, but did you involve anybody else in the agency on this process?
So when AI came on the scene, Kimberly and I both started talking about it with our team, just in general, in conversations, in team chats and meetings. Kimberly keeps our team abreast weekly of changes that are coming down the pipe. And that was mainly to calm their fears that we're not looking to replace anyone in our agency, that we're looking to make our shop more effective and efficient, and to also take some of the things that don't necessarily create joy in their day off their plate and find alternatives for that so that they can do what they do best and that they enjoy doing the most. And so we've talked to our team and involved them a lot. When we started talking about the AI assistant to answer the telephone, we pretty much did a survey of the team and resoundingly got back, yes, please move forward with this. We would love to test this.
Wow. Very good. Kim, do you agree with that?
Yes. And I think involving your team is necessary, whether you're looking for what kind of solutions you might want to try to implement or assessing the technology that you're already using. I think getting feedback from your team is vital. It identifies the pain points. It tells you what's going right. It tells you what's going wrong, whether it's time to move on from a particular vendor. So we do talk about it a lot. I mean, I think every week at our team meeting, we're talking about the technology and the AI and what changes are happening with our tech stack, what kind of feedback they have about the products that we're using right now. And I think one of the biggest red flags when you're doing a demo is that having someone who's doing the demo go beyond just the flashy, fun stuff that they're showing you, to get into the things that you're really going to need to use, not just the things that sound cool. And a lot of times when we ask those, one of the ways to identify that as a red flag is that they don't know. And it's one thing to say, I don't know, to like one or two questions, maybe something with pricing or maybe something with, can you pull this information from here? And if they're not, actively working in the product, they might not necessarily know that off the top of their head. But when they don't know the answers to a lot of questions or struggle to show us anything that's outside of their standard scripted demo, that's when things start sort of coming to light a little bit. We realize maybe this is not a product that we want to go with, because if the people who are selling it don't know the product well, chances are the customer service people are probably not going to know it that great either. So they have to be able to demonstrate that they know what we're talking about and that they know how we're going to use it. And our team is very good about giving feedback. So if there's something that we need to change, a feature that we want to add, we tell them that. And we've gotten very lucky with several vendors. I think most of our vendors at this point really take the feedback and they run with it. So the systems improve and they can customize things specifically for us. And it helps us make sure that our technology is staying relevant and useful and actually helping us be efficient.
I love the fact that you guys did this as a team approach. So often I hear of agents that go to a conference and see the bright, shiny lights and sign up and not even work on the factor that, well, is this something even relevant that's going to help us? And you get buy-in from the team. Great job. So when you guys actually sign the dotted line and it's time to go live, how did that onboarding and the training work with your voice vendor?
So we've had a fantastic experience with the voice vendor that we're utilizing right now. The onboarding and just the intake of how we wanted it to work was very smooth. They set everything up. It took a little bit of time, but they set it all up. And then we had ability to test, which we did very extensively to make sure before we actually turned it on. But that gave me a lot of confidence because the client experience is so important to us. And that first interaction with a prospect or a client on the phone can be a deal breaker. And so we wanted to make sure that we felt comfortable with the way that the phone was going to be handled enough to turn it on and give it a go. So that onboarding experience was fantastic. We took a long time, but it was worth it. And I'm glad that we did. And we kept the process at a pace that worked for us.
So timeline, you mentioned, what did that look like from when we signed to when we're live? What did that look like?
I believe we were 4 to 6 weeks before we were live. Okay. And some of that was our testing. Like the last 2 weeks was really us testing, them tweaking. We kept testing and they kept tweaking for us. So I thought that's a normal process. It should take that long to make sure everything's working properly. We also had some configuration that we needed to do with our own phone system too, just to make sure that things were lined up easy. We had a couple of things that we had to add, which were not at an additional charge or anything like that on our phone vendor. We just hadn't utilized that particular thing in the past. So we had to do that so that our AI assistant's name is Quinn, so that Quinn was able to transfer calls effectively.
Excellent. And Kim, once we're okay, everybody, it's live time, was there any unexpected limitations or challenges that you said, oops, we didn't catch this?
Absolutely. And I don't know that you're ever going to find any technology that doesn't have that. Even my cell phone has been out for, the product itself has been out for, I think, 15 years now, 20 years now, and it stopped working one day. The screen just wouldn't function. There was nothing wrong with it. It was only a few months old, but it just stopped working. So you're going to have unexpected challenges. Any technology that you use, having a vendor that's willing to work with you and fix those challenges, though, that's the key. So, for example, when we were testing Quinn, we were doing test calls just from our cell phones and calling the number that was set up as the test line. And I asked her, I told her I wanted a quote for flood insurance, and flood insurance was not in her vocabulary at that point, and she had no idea what to do with it. So we had to go in and adjust the script to make sure that she could send that to the sales and to the right department for what kind of flood insurance I needed. So I think continuous maintenance on things and constantly tweaking, you're going to have to tweak more than once, and probably for the lifetime of the product, but I think that's just part of working with technology in general. So
how long you guys been on this new AI phone system now?
We've been on since March.
Since March. Okay. Mm-hmm. So good test run.
Yes.
And Michelle, as a former owner, it was very important for me to measure that ROI, that return on that investment. I'm spending money with you. I want to make sure I'm getting it back, right?
Right.
So how did you measure it with this vendor partnership that you had?
So within the first 2 weeks, my team member who had been answering the phone came to me and said, I had no idea how distracting being first on the phone was, and how much free time I now have because I'm able to concentrate on projects and I'm not answering the line just to pass it to Kimberly. So that was proof right there to begin with. But then long-term measuring the ROI, the phone vendor's actually done some math on it for us. One of the months they clocked that they had answered, I believe, 700 incoming phone calls, and we approximated those at 5 minutes apiece. It doesn't take you long to cover, whatever your receptionist is making, but a $25 an hour employee. What that doesn't cover, though, or measure is the distraction from having to go out of something that you're doing, answer the line, and then try to get yourself refocused. So I think that we cover our ROI and then some, but there is still a portion of it that we can't actually put numbers to that we're getting benefit from as well.
All right, Kimberly.
I'll add to that.
Please.
So we miss Quinn when she's down, when she needs to go on timeout and have a couple of tweaks done. The whole team feels it. So one of the ways, without even seeing numbers, without looking at dollars and cents, one thing that I will tell you that I personally have experienced is I don't have to look at my phone every time it rings because it's ringing to the whole agency. So every couple of minutes, I'm reading an email, I'm working on a project, I'm knee deep in a renewal. I'm not looking at my phone to see who's calling, to see if they're calling for commercial or personal, or if it's my line alone ringing. So it reduces distractions for the entire team all day. And on top of that, it's actually making us better at getting the client on the phone with the right person when they call. I can't tell you how many times somebody has called and like maybe they're looking for one of our personal lines people, and I'll pick up the phone, and as I'm calling to transfer to the personal lines person, somebody else calls in and somebody else answers. So that second team member is got a call that needs to come to me. And while I am taking all the information that the client just gave me and ringing over to the person I'm trying to transfer to and then explaining what they're calling about, that person ends up in my voicemail. Well, then the client has to wait for a call back, and I've got to take the time to listen to the voicemail so I know what they're calling about, start the tasks in our system just to make sure that whatever I'm getting ready to call them about gets documented. And when you think about that happening on a regular basis, your customer service suffers, because who wants to call any place and not talk to a person? So even just that, how much time did you spend transferring calls and trying to dial over to someone to find out that they're not available, or taking a message down and sending that message to the person? So from the time resource, I can tell you that I think the ROI has been fantastic.
All right, let me put the question a different way to both of you. Have you heard any feedback, positive or negative, from your clients that are calling in and having to talk to a robot?
We have heard feedback all over the map. We have some of our clients, especially our business clients, have said, we like that so much, we'd like a referral to that vendor, please. And unfortunately, the vendor's not working outside of the insurance space right now. And so I can't refer them. However, they like it that much. We've had clients say how cool it is. On the opposite extreme, we had one of our clients tell one of our commercial account execs that she was going to lose her job to AI. So, and that she refused to speak with a robot. So we've gotten the gambit. And sometimes the client feedback has been very valuable as well. And so we've definitely listened to our clients and tweaked along the way. We've gotten a complaint that she talks too much.
Well, and one of the cool things is that sometimes people call and they ask me, was that an AI? Because they really can't tell. And I'm like, it was. And then, we go into explaining what it was. They'll ask us if they can call back just to talk to her again. And they'll spend 10 minutes talking to her and, asking questions about a whole range of things. And then you've got people that are like, I hate that thing. I don't like the AI. I don't want to talk to the AI. And I mean, we get, like Michelle said, the feedback is across the map. But typically the ones that don't love it, after we explain to them what the purpose is and why we use Quinn, they're much more understanding about it. And, we tell them you have to answer a couple of questions. You need to answer the questions or it doesn't really work. But you answer, what kind of business you're calling about and who you are and whether you have insurance with us already or not. And then it can transfer you directly to who you need to go to. So there's not waiting for one person to answer and transfer you and relay the message and then put you through and possibly end up in your voicemail. So we end up spending more time actually talking to our clients. And once we explain that, and they get why we're using it, they're a lot more open to it, because we're not trying to avoid taking their call. We're trying to make sure that we get to answer it.
Well, I think that's the key thing that you brought up. You need to have your team prepared, but your team needs not only be prepared on how to use the tool, but how to handle the questions that might be coming from your clients as well, with now this new adaption, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, any final thoughts or advice that you would give to an agent that's looking for that first AI vendor? What's the the key things that you would give advice to another agent?
Sure. So AI is constantly learning. Our phone assistant vendor is the exact same way, of course. We're tweaking it all the time. So someone needs to be in charge of the project to do that. I'm currently in charge of our AI assistant, but I intend to hand it off to a team member soon because we've gotten it to a place where I'm able to do that. But you have to have that go into it with the expectation that you need to manage it. You have to participate and tweak it so that you can continue to teach it. And that's what we're doing. We're teaching our AI the way we want it to behave with our customers and our client experience. So that's super important to us. One of the other, unfortunately, we've had experiences where we have walked away from vendors. So when you get the contract, you need to read the fine print. You can utilize, ChatGPT to help you out with that, but you need to read the fine print. What are you actually signing for? How long? What's the commitment? And are you able to get out of the contract? Because if it doesn't perform the way that you want it to, you need to pull the plug on it and quicker, sooner versus later, so that you're not just spending money on something that's not doing what it said it was going to do. So I think that's an extremely important point, because I know as a busy owner, I will skim read those contracts. So I need sometimes my research partner in crime to read those contracts, and she does a really good job with that. And she has some other tips as well for working with vendors.
I can probably list off probably 30 of them at this point, but do your research. It takes time, so don't expect to go out and look for a vendor, find one, and put one in place, and then expect it to be perfect inside of a day or a week. Do your research, look at multiple vendors that are looking to accomplish the same solutions. And like Michelle said, read the fine print. You've got to know how to get out of it, because sometimes you do have to say no, and when you say yes, you sometimes have to tell them goodbye. It is what it is. And if they're not a good fit, it doesn't make sense to keep it with your agency. And determining if they're a good fit is important, a good fit for you. Just because we have had success with this particular AI vendor doesn't mean that any other agency that's using different technology or doing things differently is going to love it. It's not necessarily going to work perfectly for them. If they've got a different phone system, for example, they may not have the ability to do all of the things that we're doing or all of the integrations that we're getting, and then another vendor might be a better fit for them. So make sure that you're sticking to your own agency's needs, not just taking on one vendor because someone else spoke very highly of it and thought it was great.
Well, don't you think also an agency needs to take a hard look inward before they get on the AI bandwagon?
Absolutely.
They need to understand what their need is, because they will go buy AI thinking it's going to solve everything when they've never really identified why they need it, right?
Right. What the pain points are they actually trying to solve.
The people on your agency can tell you all about the pain points. So if you're willing to have an open discussion and let them really give you feedback and really listen to it without anybody getting in trouble or somebody saying something as dumb, which I imagine most agencies don't have those people, but I know that we don't, because I've never heard anybody say anything like that. So really being open to feedback and knowing that your team being able to trust that when they give you the feedback, you're actually going to listen and take it. They'll give you tons of ideas of what kind of solutions are going to be right up your alley. And then from that point, you just look for a solution that fits whatever the top pain points are.
You agree with that, Michelle?
Yes, absolutely. I would say as an agency owner, I would add, don't stay on the sidelines of AI. It's not going to go away. It's going to make us more efficient, so don't be afraid of it. But do your research, do the analysis that we've talked about already, so that you know what you're needing and wanting before you jump in and have a way to evaluate the ROI. But don't be afraid of it, and don't stand on the sidelines. You absolutely need to be paying attention, even if right now that's just educating yourself so that you understand what tools are out there. And also naming a few champions on your team like Kimberly, who can stand and walk with you in the journey, help you evaluate things and keep their eyes open for new things, has been super helpful for our office.
We've covered a lot of territory, and I appreciate both Kimberly and Michelle, you're taking time out to have a conversation with me today and our guests, so that we can learn more about this crazy journey that AI is in our space and how do we maximize it. So For all of you that are listening on, please, if you want more follow-up resources about AI work groups or the templates or the policy guides or any of the stuff that we're working on, please visit the Big Eyes website /ACT for more information. And we invite you all to share your implementation stories for future episodes for us as well. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Agency Nation Radio, powered by the Big Eye and Trusted Choice. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. And if you have a story for Agency Nation Radio, contact us at hello@agencynation.com. Thank you, and have a great day.